that guy in that orange shirt? Who must be the fence expert? Who's that guy in that orange shirt? Who must be the fence expert? It's almost time to talk about the fences. It's time to discuss operations and expenses. It's time, it's really time to elevate small businesses. It's time for Joe to drop his knowledge, it's relentless. This rhyme of mine is getting a bit ridiculous. Here we go, we're live with Joe. Enjoy the show.
What is up, Fence fam? Welcome back. It's so good to see you, virtually as it were. We are coming to you live from the Expert Professional Wood Care Studios. Thank you so much for joining us. If you're listening to us, this is a recorded version of a live Q&A that I host most every Saturday from 10 to 11 Central Standard Time. We bring on guests and talk about their areas of expertise. Today's guest, if you read the description, you know exactly who he is. But we're going to start something new. I'm going to introduce them to you via their LinkedIn bios here. That's not the right word. Resume. There you go. So Nathan started out with Ameristar Fence, a name that everyone knows, and I would say knows and loves. We know and love them, so probably most everyone else does. Massive name in the fencing industry. Went on to be Director of Marketing and Business Development for Fence Track, also a name that we know and love. After that, he was the Sales and Marketing Manager at Allied Fence. Went on to Empire Fence there in Tulsa for the Commercial and Access Control Manager before starting his own endeavor there at Radius Perimeter Security. Now, this goes all the way back to 2006. So when I say Nathan's been around for a while, he's been around for a while. And if you know Nathan, you know he knows operations, commercial fencing, access controls. I'm excited to get into it. Also, he's got some news. Let's bring him on up. What is up, buddy?
What's up, man? Can you hear me?
I can hear you just fine. How are you?
I'm great. How are you this morning?
I'm good. You're looking good. Look at that.
Thank
Look
you.
at this. Look at this setup.
Yeah, the new studio, my man.
I love it. I love it so much. Hey, before we get into this, I've got a question. So I'm in your LinkedIn, going through your resume, and this, like I said, impressive, heavy hitters, names everyone knows. Until I get to October 2007 to present, marketing coordinator for New Line Productions, Cosmonaut Creative.
Yep.
Is that a thing?
So it is a thing.
Okay.
What a lot of people may not know is over time, I've done video production and AV work for many different companies. I've actually helped launch and facilitate AV work for a big international ministry now and stuff. So all of this stuff is kind of in my wheelhouse a little bit. I've not been in the game, so to speak, in a while, but nonetheless, yeah.
Well, then this conversation is going to make a lot more sense then.
Yeah, for sure.
Very good. Very good. Well, let's let the cat out of the bag. Nathan, what's coming up on your radar? What's coming out for you?
Yeah, man. So Cliff Richardson and Brett Richardson with Fence Track approached me about 6 weeks ago, and they took me to lunch and they said, "Man, you need to start a podcast." And I said, "Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Why?" And he said, they personally wanted more content and some different things out there. And I said, okay, well, we might be able to come up with something. I called people like yourself, Dan Wheeler, Dan and Cannon from My Fence Life. Just everybody had a conversation. And as I kept continuing, I think I've got a unique perspective in the business. Maybe,
Agreed.
With some of the technology things that I've been involved with and the companies and the size, being able to say working for a mom and pop all the way up to the largest, manufacturer of ornamental iron in the world.
Yeah.
My experience in the in the fence industry is really pretty unique and really versified. So especially on top of that, being a business owner and being an entrepreneur for as long as I have been, I felt like there was a lot of things that maybe I could just invest in other people. And as I'm about to turn 40 in about a month.
Yeah.
So, I really start thinking about, what's my legacy going to be, and I've thought about that. That was a precursor to why I started my own company.
Yep.
It's always been a passion of mine, but really get into that. And then on top of that, this experience and this experiment is really just another step in evolution in that process of, what can I not only do for my family, but what can I do for others to, I've been so blessed. We've known each other for years.
Yeah.
And just the process and the journey has never been what I thought it was going to be.
Sure.
But man, it's been incredible, man.
It's been a wild ride, and it feels like forever, right? But when you look back on it, it hasn't been super long, but it's been a heck of a ride so far. And when you had called me, you're like, "Hey, I've got this idea. I've got this thought." I was like, I love it. I think my opinion is more of the fence family should get involved in things like this, whether it's podcast or YouTube or whatever. And we see more and more guys on Facebook doing Facebook Lives and Facebook. I see in the comments, Josh Rand's here, and he comes to mind as someone that's doing a lot of lives, a lot of. So he's in the middle of he's kind of done with the process of drilling out holes into 4x4 posts so that he can concrete mount a wood fence essentially with wood.
Right.
It's like, man, so more fence guys, I believe, need to start getting into the social media marketing aspect of this. That's been in that aspect of it I've been talking about for a while anyway. So when you had called, you're like, "Hey, I got an idea for a podcast." I was like, "Do it." Like, well, you want to hear about it? But you should do it. Whatever it is. Yes. The conversations we have offline for me are incredibly valuable. I was like, if you're going to take even a 10th of that and share it out with the fence family, the fence community, we will all be so much better for it.
Sure. Yeah. And that's what I hope. I know I keep hounding this, and I've said it to several different people, and even partners that we're reaching out to, looking at, immediately coming up into the space with partners attached to the project, right, is that I want this to be very content rich, very technical. I'm that guy, right? Like, so
Yeah.
like,
Oh yeah.
for those of you that don't know me, I mean, I'm a very technical person. So I'd love for that. It's kind of hard because now we've already started producing the show and started creating content, and we're just nicking the surface, I think, of what it's going to be. But like I was telling Joe before we got on live here, our episodes have all been less than 20 minutes, which for someone like me, I'm we were talking about, I am shocked that we're jamming through this stuff. But I feel like there's going to be times where that's where I'm talking about when I guide a conversation and when I'm, having an interview or really trying to get to a point. Man, you know me, Joe, like I want to get to the point. Like I'm not trying to be your best friend. I'm not. So hopefully that, that carries over into the conversation, and that carries over across the screen or across our podcast, where people see that that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to compress a lot of information in a tight window, then just produce that content and get it out there as fast as we can, for the benefit of everyone else. Because I don't think there's anything good about me sitting here going, well, we've got, I've got 47 episodes in the queue, but whatever. I mean, I'm going to figure out if we're on the back end making things, we're going to do just like I use Dan Blanc as a great example. What he did with the asking me about my day and some of that stuff. And what's funny is some of the supplementation to the main thing is actually what ends up getting even more recognition. I mean, Dan and I did a ask me about my day where we were talking about, we both woke up, I think it was in July or August, and we had some accounting issues, right? And we were both honest and candid about that. But that whole hour conversation, people were like, that's like gold. And I had no idea that would be something that so many people would take to. But I mean, it doesn't surprise me because that's the kind of content, the kind of things I want to listen to.
Well, I think there's huge value in bringing personal perspective to the content, right? Because if you're going through it, if I'm going through it, there's a really good chance there's others that are either going through it, have gone through it, or don't want to go through it, right? They haven't gone through it yet, but in regards to the accounting, like, well, maybe we can help a few people avoid some potholes by giving them a warning of, hey, listen, this is something that could come up. This is how we're addressing it, that sort of thing. Huge value.
Exactly.
Let's say hello. Speaking of, we mentioned a few people that are in the chat right now. And I'm confused by some of this, but let's get through it. Mr. Fence Tools, one Sean King says, let's go. Welcome, Sean. And then Mr. Fence Academy says, we are ready, driving the next 10 hours. That's excessive.
Hey, Sean, shout out while you're listening to this. If you're coming anywhere near me, we need to get hooked up, because like Sean is a great example. Innovators in the industry, specifically for the fence side of our audience. Yeah. That he has got so many ideas, so many tools and products. Like I want to have him come in and I'm like, pitch me the catalog. I'm like, how many times have we seen that? We haven't had that, but I would love to have an episode where that's what we do. We're like, man, bro, sell every tool you can and go.
Right. Well, and his tools are nice and unique in that once you put them in your hands, you go, I know exactly. I don't need a lengthy explanation. There's not 12 pages of instructions and documentation. I know how this thing works intuitively.
Yep.
Definitely nice. Then we've got Fence King. Is that, I don't know how to say that. Dom
DeLuise.
DeLuise. Okay. Mr. Cannonball Run, the captain of chaos of podcasting. That's not bad. The captain chaos of podcasting.
I'm going to find that mask or make it. And
then my Fence Life chimes in. I think it is Captain Chaos. I agree. That's a good one. And then Dan Blanc. This feels like a circular conversation right now. The host of Protecting Your Radius podcast. Okay.
I think that was all the same person.
I feel like it might have been. And Midwest chapter president of the AFA. Absolutely. My president. Let's see. And a good old pal, good old buddy, old pal, knock 'em dead today, Joe and Nate Dogg. So obviously, thank you, Dan and Cannon, for getting into the show early and saying hello. So speaking of podcasts, obviously My Fence Life, not only a podcast now, they're across multimedia, right?
Right.
You've also got Dan Wheeler. You've also got Mark Olson. So we've got a good group of guys, and I'm so glad that you're getting into it now, so that because I feel like we're all coming from the same, perspective of we've been blessed. How can we bless others?
Exactly.
All
Yep.
right. So Sean and I were talking last week. They all blend together, but talking about, so in church right now we're talking, and this isn't like one of those conversations, but we're talking about giving, right? Because 'tis the season sort of thing. But giving doesn't always have to be financial, and actually giving financially is kind of the easy button of giving. It's
Absolutely.
easy to write a check,
Yep.
send it away, and continue
Yep.
on your way. So what we were talking about was there's three ways, right? There's time, there's talent, and there's treasure. So the treasure is the easy one. Well, what can you do with your time and your talent, right? Can you give in all three ways? And so I really feel like this is kind of coming from that vein of we've been blessed. How can we bless others? Luckily we've got time to where we can do things like this. We've got some level of talent to where this like whole thing can happen. So anyway, I'm glad that you're joining this group of I don't know what we call ourselves, social media people, Fence fam. Bo DeVore, welcome. Bo says, "Good morning, Fence fam. Tapping in from Oregon." Good morning, Bo. I bet it's cold and snowy up there. Jonathan says, "Hello, Fence fam from Northeast Ohio." Ohio. Jeremy is tuning in. Good morning, Fence fam. Good morning, Jeremy. Josh Rand, we were speaking about him a minute ago. It's 5 degrees here in Heber City, Utah. Woo, it's cold. We're getting ready to get a cold snap, though. You're close enough, Nathan. You guys are getting it too, aren't you? Thursday?
It was 26 when I got to the shop.
So Thursday, we're looking at 6 for a high and -1 for a low. No, thank you. No, thank you.
Where are my Carhartts?
It's right. I need my insulated bibs out. This whole like Mark Olson going to Florida thing starts making a lot more sense. You're like,
amen. Hey, Mark.
Yeah.
Amen.
Susie Wells, welcome, Susie. We know Susie. Good morning.
What up, Suze?
Good morning, Susie. Yeah, so Josh said the starter music is rad. I agree. So one of our main guys, Matt, he's got some talents, and he shared some time and some talents with us as far as putting that together. Huge shout out. There he is. Speaking of Dan Wheeler. What is up, Dan Wheeler? Can't wait for this one. So Dan has the Fence Industry Podcast. Now, his intro used to be the first and only podcast for the fencing industry. Now, but he is the first. He will forever be the first.
Yes. I
saw him and Dan Blanc got into it. This has been a couple months ago. There was some suspicious looking documentation from the My Fence Life side that said they were the first, but I think there was like photoshopping allegations. And I think as far as we're concerned, Dan Wheeler was a pioneer of fencing podcasting. So
I'll back.
We should call him Don Dan.
Oh, there we go.
Don Dan. Don. CNS Vinyl, what is up? Howdy from Central Florida. That's somebody I could be jealous of right now. Central Florida would be nice. Feeling like a peasant over here, being in the presence of all the titans of the industry. I don't who else. Yeah, maybe in the chat, maybe. I don't know.
You got to start somewhere.
It all starts somewhere. Corey Bigelow says Nate looks good behind a mic. Agreed. What's up, Corey? So let's talk about the podcast a little bit. Because you and I have talked about it, and we've talked about you bringing your unique perspective to it. But what does that look like? So if you can kind of forecast out what the content looks like, what are you going to be talking about?
One of the big things that we want to focus on is, like I said, innovation in the industry, innovation in our trade. And I think a big thing that was going to be different about mine is it's not just going to be for fence guys. Sure. It's going to be for gate contractors. It's going to be for guys that do access controls. Anything that has to do with that perimeter security, it's going to be for us. But I also am going to make it generic enough within when I get into like best business practices, like things that we've done, because I get a lot of questions often about, you know, you started full time in your new business this year. March 5th was our launch date, so to
Yeah.
speak. We had been doing it. I'd had the part-time thing going with it for a while, but
Sure.
but full time, and to be able to do within 9 months of we've done over $1.5 million in revenue.
Very good.
And I don't say that to impress you, but I say that to impress upon everyone. Like, there is the only reason why is having the right people, having the right processes, and then having a focus on profit. And those three things, that's old Marcus Lemonis, if you guys know the prophet from CNBC. But man, when I heard that years ago, my wife and I looked at each other and we said, how simple and profound of a concept that you have to have those three ingredients to have any type of successful business. Like, you can have great people and you can have great processes and great products, but if you don't focus on profit, you don't have a business. But
Right.
if you only focus on profit and the processes, your great people that are the ones that got you where you're at are going to be gone.
Absolutely.
There has to be a balance. There has to be that synergization within the company, so to speak. And, the business side of it, it's funny, Joe, I don't really want it to be about that, but you can tell, like, that's the crap that wakes me up, that I'm like really excited. So there's a lot of people already asking, like, are you going to talk about the business stuff? And I'm like, yes, but we want it to be about the technology. But then there is something to be said because of my experience, because we've been so blessed to have multiple businesses over my lifetime, and I've failed and I've succeeded. And I've been at jobs where I failed and I succeeded, and every time the success has always been beyond what I ever thought it would be. Right. So there's something to be said about that. And I'll be honest, not to get preachy, but it ain't me. You know what I'm saying? I'm just a fat white guy from Oklahoma. I mean, to be honest. Right. But it's because I put in the effort. I definitely put in the work. But man, just having that luck, so to speak, like Thomas, one of my favorite quotes, I say it all the time. I think I've already said it on the podcast like twice, is I find it, Thomas Jefferson said, I found it's funny, the harder I work, the luckier I get.
Yep.
And it's apropos because it's true. It's like, man, like if I just outwork the competition, if I'm just on a Saturday in my shop, we're going to get off this thing in a bit, and I'm going to work. Because I've got things to do, because my clients they now have an expectation of me working on a Saturday. They have that expectation. They know I take one day off a week, but you know what? That's okay. So if you hear the numbers, and you know what I'm saying? And I'm talking about like going from 0 to that in such a short period of time. Well, did you work 6 days a week? Were you willing to work all night long? Were you willing to put in 18-hour days? It's crazy. Now, here's the thing. I'm not talking about doing it forever. I'm talking about doing it for a short period of time, like a focused period of time. So those things, we're going to get into that a lot. I mean, that's a big passion of mine, of course. And then I'm going to do some of the stuff will be in studio, in the studio here. And then some of the conversations will be done over Zoom and stuff. And some of the Zoom conversations that I've already been discussing with some vendors, we're actually even going to go to the next step and do some integrated sampling. So like some of these software companies, we're going to actually have them in the process of talking about it, showing it at the same time. So if you listen to the podcast, you're going to want to be driven back to that YouTube video, because it's going to have stuff. You're like, crap, I need to see, So I enjoy podcast formatting because it allows me, I do a lot of estimates. We drive around a lot. There's always time where I'm working on things for the business or in the business. And if I'm not on the phone talking to someone or talking face to face, I can have my earbuds in and consume that content, right? I don't need my eyes fixed. But there's other times where, like I said, with a demonstration or something where I want to see what's going on, I want to really understand that. That will be those times where we're going to be able to integrate that, our own technology, into the process, so people can see things that, it might just, spark an interest, Joe, about like, hey, I think I need a product demo.
Yep.
But I'll actually show you a 5-minute little semi pitch, and then
Snippet.
you know, hey, Nate just saved us a crap ton of time. They saved us an hour from sitting with that. So, there's a
Yep.
benefit to us as contractors because you can, dude, you and I look at everything, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You'll know pretty quick if it's going to be something that's going to work or not,
Yeah.
right? For within your company. So,
Well, that's
like the overall concept, what we're thinking with where the show's going to start.
I like that a lot because we're bringing on some new software on the manufacturing side that there's not a lot of good carryover from the sales and retail side to manufacturing as far as software goes, right? So
Right.
candidly, we were using QuickBooks Manufacturer, and we had already started like having some limitation issues with that, and we haven't even grown yet, right? So, but I started Googling it. I was like, in Caleb Roth, Expert Professional Wood Care Products, I'd reach out to him. Actually, I'd reach out to him about an email marketing platform. Like, hey, who are you guys using? Because I received their content, like it looks good and crispy, and like, what do you guys use? And so he turned me on to this software, and I started Googling it. I'm like, let's learn more about it. And all I could find were sales videos from the actual company, right? Like, well, I don't want a sales pitch, right? This is a conversation I have a lot. Like, I don't want to be sold. I want to buy. And those are two different experiences, right? So if there was someone out there that had given like a 5-10 minute, hey, here's a quick and dirty, here's what you'll love, here's what you might not love, here's why it's a good fit, here's why it wouldn't be a good fit, all day. Like, that's the content we really need more of is, what's the good, bad, and ugly of this thing? If I get into this, what am I not going to like? And as long as I'm okay with that, I'm good with it.
And me having an analytical mind, like even if there's something as we're going through, like I'm already telling these vendors that I may ask tough questions that you're going to have to say no to, but I would rather it be in a controlled environment where you and I can have that conversation. We're not doing lives. So that's another question I've had people ask. We're not doing lives. It's all going to be pre-recorded, edited, and stuff. But I mean, really, like I've already looked at what we ain't editing nothing. I mean, it's raw, right? It's like this. Let's have a conversation now is really what it is. So, but yeah, that's my purpose with it is there are really cool things. And there's products that I like, dude, I was against. Great example. Let me tell everyone this. I was an instructor at Tony Thornton's Super Summit in July up at Shangri-La here at Monkey Island, Oklahoma. Okay. And Company Cam was there. And I had heard of Company Cam. And I used Job Nimbus like you, Joe.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't need Company Cam. I could take pictures in Job Nimbus and annotate and whatever, right? And Nicole from Company Cam was there. She's one of their marketing managers, right? And she said, I don't think you understand it. And I said, I'm not paying for another software. That's literally what I said. I said, nah, dude, in 6-7 minutes, I like timed her. I was 100% on board. And I am telling you, actually, besides our My Salesman and our Job Nimbus, I think Company Cam for us and our team is probably the most beneficial thing for communication across the board. So when it's time for me to have that Company Cam show, I want to talk about how all right, tell me the nuts and bolts, right? Yeah. But then I want to tell everyone how we use it.
Yep.
Because I use subcontract labor. Well, there's some stuff you can do with Company Cam. Bro, I am telling you, it has changed the speed of communication and the speed of business with subcontractors because of that program.
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely. This is probably getting into that show, but like, it's not only photos. Like, that's what we're finding is because, listen, Job Nimbus is robust. There's a lot there, right? So one of our subs, we were kind of walking them through, hey, here's where you find a work order. Here's where you do this. Like, no, I'm not gonna. We're not gonna do this. I don't want to have to hunt and find all this stuff.
Nope.
Okay. Well, yeah. So the thing about subcontractors is they are independent contractors. They can say no, right? They can say no. The way I work is you will hand me the work order packet, and we'll do all this, and we'll go do a job walk, and all right. With Company Cam, now it's like, okay, It's easy. You pull up. This is going to sound like a sales pitch, and this isn't like a sales pitch, but you pull up, you open the app, and it says, hey, it looks like you're here. Is this where you're at? This project? Bink? Yep. Work order, video walkthrough, job photos of flags and where gates are placed, annotations. They will do that. They do that.
Yeah.
Right. And then they will take pictures and then they'll do their own videos. It's nice.
Bro, it's
slick.
I'm not gonna lie, it's incredible.
Yeah. Yeah. And like I said, this is gonna sound like a sales pitch.
I know. I'm like, hey, Company Cam, can you sponsor my podcasted videos? Because
that's been a conversation here.
That's what I'm talking about. That kind of content, that kind of interaction.
Yeah.
In the process,
and this is an interesting like behind the scenes conversation is like when we're talking about sponsors, who to reach out to, who to bring on. Like I only want people that I have personal experience with that if you and I were in a private conversation, I would recommend them to you. Yeah. Right. Because
100%.
I think not in the fencing industry, but I consume a lot of YouTube content. And so when I'm watching, some of these other, like I'm into sailing shows right now. I will never sail probably in my life, but I like watching other people sail to exotic places. They'll have sponsors come on. They'll be like, this episode is sponsored by so-and-so, and this is so great. And this is a fake instance where I use it. And it's like completely mocked up. It's like, forward. I don't need to see this.
Yeah.
I don't want to be, I think that comes off, right? But if they have personal experience with it and they're like, hey, listen, I love using it. I want to introduce you to it. To be candid, they are paying me because I love, to say this, but even if they didn't pay me, I would still tell you this is what I use and love.
And that's one of the things that drives me crazy, like side note about social media in general. My wife is into all the bloggers, she's a mom blogger, and she doesn't do it herself, but she's into all that stuff. And, I find it interesting, that everyone has had to be more transparent over time. Like I am getting paid, but so often I watch some of them and I'm like, I mean, the lady uses it. What's the problem if she gets paid for that? Like, I don't like, or understand your influencer per se. And like, that they're pitching you, right? I'm like, I think we should have as adults, we should have a little more discernment in the marketplace to understand, like, does this lady really use this thing from Target or not? Like she either does or she doesn't. Like, let's get, but I don't know. So I always find it's funny you say that because I've seen people say like, well, I'm going to have a digital measuring tool and stuff like that. And I would respond on Facebook or something, hey, you need to check out my salesman because it's incredible. And they're like, well, I could do that if, I got on Google Earth and used the measuring tool. And I'm like, okay, man, so it's not for you, bro.
Right.
Like, you see what I'm saying? Like, it's just like, we get it, but the program, it still has the value. It's still superior to whatever other concept you have in your mind because it does all these things and unfortunately, especially online, like anything now, even with products. So anybody out there pitching a product or pitching a service, there is going to be detractors because they're like, I saw someone the other day talking about QuickBooks. I mean, why use QuickBooks, Joe? You can get a piece of paper and write what? Is this 1971?
Good.
Like, yeah, I was like sitting there thinking, but I'm like, so you want to save $60 a month? I mean, it's wild, but that's a great example because who wouldn't use QuickBooks? Like, if you're a real business, you would use QuickBooks. It's so stupid, but that kind of stuff. I mean, hopefully we can flesh through that. Everything that I have on the program, I will either know about it before they come on, like legit, and I will ask them the questions where I'm like, why should I use this?
Sure.
And then hope that information is the kind of information that bleeds downfield for everyone that they can use.
Well, it comes from a place of authenticity, right? Like I think that's the huge thing. And a side note I absolutely understand people can find other ways of doing it, right? But for me, it comes down to time efficiency.
Yes.
I could build a CRM out of an Excel database. Like if I really wanted to dive in and figure it out, or I could find a company that does it really well. I don't know how much I've talked about Job Nimbus. I've talked about them a lot. They don't sponsor the show. Job Nimbus, if you're listening, I'm open to conversations. But but it's software that I love using.
Right.
You know, and just the whole thing. So I like where you're coming from an authentic space there of, hey, this is what I use and this is what I enjoy. And this is a key thing. This is how I love using it, or how I enjoy using it.
Exactly.
Let's say hello to a few people. We got some friendly faces in the crowd. Let's see. Alan Bolden. What is up, Alan? OKC. What's up, Fence Fam? He's right down the street from you.
Trusted Fence.
Two of the guys I really appreciate. Did you see his laser engraved ornaments?
Slick.
Noted.
Yeah.
Noted. The Santa Claus tracker, I was like, that's so good. So good.
Love it.
Corey Bigelow says, you have to work hard, but you can't outwork your stupidity. Okay.
Interesting.
True.
I like that, Corey. That's a good way of putting it.
Matt Warner says, have to be willing to grind. Good luck, Nathan, in your new adventure. Absolutely.
Thank you, Matt.
Alan goes on to say, Nathan, now it's because of you I got Company Cam. Boom. There you go.
You hear that, Company Cam?
Yeah. Company Cam if you're listening. Robert Looker says, hey, how goes it, Fins Fam? Hello, Robert. It says, I just learned about your podcast a week or so ago, and I'm almost caught up now. Loving the content. Thank you. Appreciate it. You should check out this guy's podcast when it comes on. We've talked about it, but what is the title that people can search for the podcast?
Good question. So it's Protecting Your Radius Podcast.
Okay.
And all of the social channels are going to be radius_podcast.
Okay.
So across the board, every TikTok, Snapchat, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube Shorts, blah, blah, blah. All that.
The whole thing. Love it. When can we find it?
Good question. So episode 0, my short little intro episode, will be coming out December 26th.
Okay.
So after Christmas. And then we'll be releasing the title show every Monday. We've already got a supplemental show in the works called Downtime with Donnie. So I've got a guy, his name's Donnie Lockhart. He's been in the fence industry for 35 years. He is actually an installer. He's 13 years older than I am. So he's kind of like my wizard of the group and of the team. But man, Donnie has such a unique story. He is a good old boy from Oklahoma. He's going to shoot you straight. And some of the conversations that I have with him, and he loves to talk already. I mean, it's going to be freaking gold. That might actually be greater than my main show is the thing. And I'm okay with that because Donnie is just that. There's going to be so much connection from guys in the field with him and what he says, because I have that business minded, that office kind of mentality, the sales guy. Like that's my thing. Right. So he's coming in from the other way where he's the field guy going, y'all are crap, and stuff. And just that whole interaction is just going to be gold. And I think there's going to be a lot of stuff that'll come out of that. So we're looking at launching those at the first of the year on Wednesdays.
Nice.
That's kind of the rollout plan for right now. Yeah.
Love it. I love it. Corey said, did anyone else notice Nathan mentioned, does anyone else use this from Target? Hint, hint, chairs.
Oh.
Okay.
These chairs ain't from Target, Dan Blanc. An inside joke that now everyone's knowing.
Jonathan says, excited to hear about the new content coming to the Fence podcast world, and nothing beats a peer in laying out the pros, cons of new tech coming into our industry. Agreed. I think that's like when when I was going to find it, I would have valued that way more than the company provided. And it probably could have said the same thing, right? But to have a guy say, hey, I'm a manufacturer. I don't like it when I can't do this, and this with software. This software I found does those things. I would have given that much more credence than, now the company has a robust YouTube. Like any question you've got, they've got a YouTube video about it, which is fantastic. But someone in the industry that we're in as far as manufacturing goes would have been massive. Robert says, good to know. Yep. Check it out. Check out his podcast. So we went ahead and dropped it in the comment section, protectingyourradius.com. Check it out. December the 26th.
Yep.
Very good. Very good. I think we covered a lot. We covered a lot of ground in that. So you said podcast, but then you also talked about that we'll be able to find it elsewhere, as far as reels, as far as YouTube shorts. You guys are going everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah. That was kind of the thought to it. And, that's why it's kind of funny. One thing, if anyone's interested in this scope, and I talked to Joe about this first, was I thought it would just be something where I would want to just pull out a phone and make a video and send it out. But as I've realized, and even in building the studio, I mean, there's a lot of, depending on what level you want to do it at, there's a lot of costs involved with that and stuff.
Sure.
So
Yep.
we want to produce the highest quality content we can, just to create a better environment for that learning, if that makes sense. So that's why I did what you see here, and you guys will see more of. But I don't want a good message to be lost because my microphone sounds, I'm using my iPhone microphone, or I'm on my Beats or something like that. Like, I understand that, coming from that background, having a little bit of experience with AV myself. So we want to make it to where when the content is coming out, Joe, you've pioneered this at minimum, because for us guys, you've set the standard of like what it could look like for the fence industry. And now I'll be taking that and really expanding into like the gates and the access control, the operator side of things.
I love it.
That is going to be probably the biggest thing that we're doing in that, creating that ecosphere. I mean, that ecosystem socially. So
absolutely. Well, and I think that's a good kind of side conversation to have real quick, is about producing content, right? So we talked about fence guys producing content in the fencing community. Josh Rand comes to mind just because I've watched a lot of his stuff lately. But producing that content for client-facing conversations as well, right? Like I'm a big believer of this, right? That you can shoot videos. And this is one thing we talked about on a different episode, was talking about you can use an iPhone, right? So there's a YouTube channel called D&J Projects. They're out of Nottingham. It's a father-son fencing duo. Well, they've got a bunch more people, but the show is his father-son, shot entirely on iPhones. That's it. That is the production quality of the show. And it looks good because the video is good. Now, to your point, the audio sometimes it can be found lacking, right? But the content quality is good. You can start out there. Now, there's some obvious upgrades you can make right off the bat, because you hit on one. Audio is the most important aspect. There's studies out there that say people will put up with mediocre video if the audio is good, if it's not crackling, if it's clear and crisp. Vice versa, they will not put up with it could be 8K video. It could be so good.
Yep.
But if the audio's not great, if it crackles, or if it just the quality isn't there, they'll skip through it. They want to be able to hear clearly what's being said. And then they'll put up with mediocre video. First upgrade is audio every time. But just like people in the fencing community have found us, their clients can find them if they just start producing content. And I use John Bowdy all the time because that's who I saw doing it really well first. Was he was just doing project walkthroughs with his phone. Hey guys, John with Stony Creek Fence, this is what we're doing. And talking to John, he's had great feedback from that, just because he's reaching his people, his potential clients, whenever they want to consume his content, wherever they consume his content. So I think that's a good lesson, is that one, you and I are having this conversation before this came on of all the equipment it takes to make something like this happen, right? Obviously the mics and the soundboards and the lighting and the cameras, and it can get intense. But I think some people see that as a barrier of entry. Like, well, listen, I don't have 5 figures to drop on putting something like this together. I didn't either. This is not where this started. This is where it currently is, but it's not where it started. It started out with a borrowed camcorder recording videos in my living room with just like a gray backdrop behind me. And then eventually, slowly but surely, we invested in stuff as we could. But yeah, I don't know. I think people see, and especially your studio, like your studio looks Incredible. Like and that's what we were talking about. Like, and obviously, so your background makes sense in AV now because it's like the video's good, the lighting's good, the audio is really good.
Yep.
But I think people might see this though, Nate, as a barrier of entry, right? To say, well, like, listen, I looked this up on Amazon. I don't have that kind of money. That's not where it starts, right? And it's not. You can get started with a phone. Just make some
Yep.
upgrades as you go, sort of thing.
Yep.
But
I think getting started with a phone and finding a microphone system that
yes,
integrates into the phone is good enough for 95%.
yeah,
And to be fair, like I said, this was not my idea. I mean, I always had an intention of making this like a podcast studio, a vlogging studio down the road,
yeah.
which is why we had the wall already pre-prepped when we built out the office, right? We're like, yeah, it'll probably become something one day. But I had people approach me that want the content, that wanted to pay for the content. And so in transparency, I'm sitting there going, y'all can buy all this stuff we need, because I was like, if we want to make it legit, like I want it to be just that top tier. I want to chase after people like you, like after Dan and Cannon and Dan Wheeler on the sound and stuff. So that's what we tried to do. Just to, again, I wanted to make it digestible as easy as possible. But that being said, an iPhone Pro and a great microphone that plugs into that US or that lightning adapter.
Yep.
You're off to the races, man.
Absolutely. Well, because the phone's shooting 4K and most platforms, like most people watching this are not watching it in 4K.
Exactly.
It's likely in 1080, right? So your phone already shoots video quality that's better than what people will be consuming it in. Audio is, and you're right. There are all sorts of audio devices that plug into a regular cell phone. Boom. Put it on a tripod. You're done.
You're done.
You're set and ready to go. That's how we did. So at Ozark Fence, we had Ask a Fence Guy Friday. And that was the production quality. It was my phone on a tripod or on one of those Gorilla Pods. Eventually, we put some audio with it, and it was just me on a job site or me somewhere, set it up Fridays at noon, and like, let's talk fence for a while.
Yeah.
And it did really well. Now, here's the thing is you and I both know this. It's not, and you had said this, it's not overnight success, right? You don't start doing a show and then your phone start ringing that afternoon, right? If you're doing a client facing type live show or whatever you're doing, it's a process. For the first like month, I think my mom was the only viewer for quite a while. And she, like, bless her heart, she was doing the mom thing where she was trying to play like the client where she's like, tell me more about your fence. What kind of fence do you install? Where are you today, Joe? Like, Mom, people can see your name. Like, thank you. But let's have a conversation as if you're my mom because people can see your name. Like, they're gonna figure this out.
Mary, you're like,
yeah. Like, great question. Donna Everest. Today we are in Republic looking at this privacy fence. But eventually more people started filtering in, right? Yeah. And then one person shared it out. I tell you what happened is we had a couple realtors start sharing it out because I was giving content for free. I'm like, hey, let's talk about the difference between pine and cedar because, and let's talk about that. One's cheaper than the other. Like if that is your consideration, that's a product for you, right? But the problems you probably have with it are it's going to warp and twist. It's just generally not going to look as nice. And we just started talking it through. And so then the realtors would start asking questions. Perfect. Let's start talking about whatever it is they want to talk about. And then they would share it out with their people because, listen, realtors are in the content business. The ones that really get it. They have a whole crowd that comes to them for answers to commonly asked real estate questions. If I can be their fence guy that produces content about the fencing subject, fantastic. It did candidly, it did too well. Like, it did really well. And then we got slammed and we found the top end of the market pretty quickly as far as price goes. And then we're like, well, listen, like you can only take so much without. Candidly, what happened is we got too much and then we started dropping the ball, right? We just got covered up. And so phones weren't being answered in a timely manner. Messages weren't being returned in a timely manner just because we had the people we had, right? So this is pre-pandemic. And then once the pandemic hit, we were done anyway. But as far as like capacity, because you couldn't go find more people. Like we couldn't find more people to answer the phones. We couldn't find anyway, on and on. So we haven't started the show back. But one of the conversations we're having right now is the phone calls are slowing down. I mean, and it's winter, right? It's basically a week and a half till Christmas. Holy cow.
Yeah. Right.
So the phones next year might not pick up as quick, right? So because we're talking about the economy and we're talking about this and that. So maybe we start the show back again. Do we need the phones to ring? Let's start the show now, knowing that it took 5 or 6 months for the phone to start ringing.
Get going. Yeah, that's good.
Something we're talking about. I don't know how we got down that rabbit hole.
I like it.
Tony Rivera says, howdy. Hello, Tony. Bo Butler says, gate automation access control is a niche with very little information available. I can't wait for you to shed light on it. Agreed. And not only shed some light on it, like this is something you are incredibly knowledgeable and incredibly experienced at.
I appreciate that. Well, hopefully it doesn't turn me out to be a fraud about it. No, I'm just kidding. Actually, one of my first episodes, I've been talking to Alan Bolding from Trusted Fencing in Oklahoma City.
Yeah.
Is he asked me the question offline about, hey, I want to get into that side of the business. And he started asking me questions. I said, hey, hold on. We should make this a show.
Yep.
And I said, what better way to get the information out there is have someone that isn't in it sit right next to me here, and then me just answer the questions.
Right.
So that actually is going to be for those that have had interest in that or maybe don't have a ton of experience in it. But I'm going to have him hammer me with just questions nonstop and just have a conversation, almost like he's interviewing me. Perfect. About how to start it, why to start it, what are the pitfalls, what are the advantages, like what are the things do you need to have in place or expectations, because it's so niche.
Yeah.
That you really have to understand. Like once you're in it, it's easy.
Sure.
Barrier of entry, it's not high, but the service level stuff is high enough to where you do either need to work for a company that does it and has done it well, really, yeah, or get the right answers. And I hope that that's some of the information we can give out would be something like that.
Well, and I think it'd do well because I think there's, and this is like the Marcus Sheridan thing. They ask, you answer. If people are asking you these questions, it's a content that you should be producing because other people have that question as well. But Bo hit the nail on the head when he said there's not a lot of content out there about it right now, like good quality content. There's a fair amount of sales content out there, but not any, nothing talking about the service side. There's not a lot of content out there that discusses UL 325 as it pertains to gate operators that a lot of folks need to know. Who was it? I think it was Canon that had a video where they were going out to service a gate and like one of the entrapment devices, entrapment protection devices was like plugged in, but shoved down a piece of conduit. So it's like, whoa, that has at minimum, that has liability written all over it.
And that's not uncommon.
No, they're like, I just need this thing to work. I don't want it to have to go through I need it to work correctly. Like that's kind of a pain. I just need this thing to open and close. Because sometimes that's what the clients are asking for. They're like, I don't care. There's no one walking through this gate. It's only ever going to be cars. I don't need it until something happens. And then they're like, well, I hired a professional. They should have known this. It's on them. Yeah. God forbid something happens. The liability goes to the installer. They're the ones that should have been pushing for this, but there's not a lot of that content is the point.
Sure.
There's some guys who are just like, well, listen, hey, the customer said that they don't care. And I just plugged it in real quick and shoved it down the conduit and it works until you get sued and you don't get to do what you do anymore.
Exactly. And we hope that some of that content that we're driving out there, Joe, is going to be even more like I said, that the technical aspect of it, I want to see stuff from these manufacturers
Yeah.
that really gets into like, how are they overcoming these obstacles, overcoming these challenges? So for those of us that are professionals and we approach it from a professional aspect, like what are they doing as a manufacturer? Like LiftMaster is a great example. We do a lot of LiftMaster. Hate me, you're gonna hear it on the podcast, so whatever. uh, but I say that because like their first iteration of the UL compliant from the 2016 changes was a single laser retroreflective beam, right? So it was just shooting one beam off. Well, a year later, they come up with the dual beam. The LMRUL is what it's called now. The other one was the LMRU. The reason being is because the first iteration, I could take the reflector and slam it against it. It would work. And you could throw it in the box. Now, I didn't do that, but I'm saying that is the collective I or we, right? Yeah. And the new one, you're about 18 inches away and you start getting it. Hey, man, I tested these myself because I was like, really? And then I came to figure out, I called LiftMaster and I said, I'm guessing that this is a transmitter and this is the receiver, and it's now doing a V shape instead of a line. And they said, well, we can't really tell. Okay, well, you know what? I know that I'm doing, because when I go like this, it goes, so I can't just tape it up anymore. And again, not that I was, but I love understanding and seeing that, because I'm going to see that next week from, Joe Gate guy down the street potentially. So how do we get around that? Or, well, great. Now that manufacturer figured out how to make it to where they couldn't overcome that safety obstacle. So they legitimately have to put it up. Good for us.
Yeah. Well, and there's boards that won't work unless there's two forms of entrapment protection.
Exactly.
Yep. It won't happen. Like when we were doing gate operators, we were doing a lot of Viking, and just that was our brand of choice. And their boards started coming out where like you had to. I was like, oh, it made sense. We were having the dual photo eyes, but we were wiring them in together just because it made it a little bit easier. The safety aspect was the same, right? They're both running. If one of them tripped, it would trip both of them. Anyway, okay. But then the boards came out to where you had to have them wired separately because it had to recognize two different devices. At that time, it was two different devices. Interesting. Good to know. Good to know. But anyway, I don't. There's a whole conversation about resistors that could take a long time to talk about, but I think that's where
I'm not sure how much I'll get into that, because I want to tell someone how to bypass it.
Exactly. Good call. As soon as I was getting ready to say that, I was like, I probably shouldn't even talk about that.
Yeah, I was like, I don't know what legal ramifications are on the backside of that. I will actually have a lawyer before I start talking about safety devices on that.
So, and that's the thing, is you'll likely have to preface it with what you hear, like financial guys, like, this is not financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor. You should consult your own financial advisor. So it's like, this is not safety device. This is not UL 325, specific, please consult your own consultant before, whatever. I don't know. Yeah. You're going to have to probably, I mean, because something like this, the liability could be huge. Like the ramifications could be huge.
Sure.
And so I'm like, well, I heard Nate talk about it. And I think what he said was like, you're like, whoa, not what I said, actually.
Yeah.
But
I said, don't do that.
Yeah.
Don't.
Actually, I said, this is how you don't do it. Logan Williams says, hey there, Joe and everyone else. Hope everyone's having a great Saturday. Logan, you as well. Guys, we're right at an hour. So if you got any last minute questions, drop them in the comments below. We can stick around for a few extra. Nate, are you okay to stick around for a few extra minutes?
I got 5% on the iPad, so we're about at the end. So.
Better get it close. All right, last minute questions, bring them in. Corey Bigelow had a question. Joe, what percentage of your viewers are your install customers versus material customers versus others? Just because of the niche we had created, the majority of them were install or service side, because again, we had realtors sharing out the content. If we wanted to foster more of the material customers, we would probably tailor the content towards them, right? Each show, we would probably talk about a different product we offered, or it would be in the shop, or it would be in the tool cage, or it'd be somewhere else. It really depends on what content you're putting out there to who consumes it. For us, we were pushing service side. So we were out in the field talking about a fence we had just installed. We were talking about subjects that homeowners would be curious about when building a fence. For us, it was mostly service side, but because that was just the content we were putting out there. Nate Allen says, I'm working on a list. Very good. Very good. I'll have to come. So I'll have to come see you. I mean, here's the thing is you're only a few hours down the road. I need to just take a trip down and come see you.
Yeah.
I'm actually going to be in your neck of the woods less than a month. Chili Bowl's coming up.
Oh, that's right. Oh, we need
and
the Chili Bowl's in town then for sure.
Oh, it is a wild weekend for sure. For sure. And here's the thing, like as we're getting older, we're like, well, maybe we'll go down. It starts Monday. We're like, well, maybe we'll go down Thursday for like the main race. It's like my liver cannot take a full week of being at Chili Bowl. Like it doesn't. It doesn't.
Tell everybody what the Chili Bowl is.
Sorry. I should clarify. Yeah, Chili Bowl. So it's an indoor sprint car racing event. It is like I don't know if it's the biggest, what do they call it? The biggest indoor show on dirt or something like that.
Yeah.
But it's like, so these NASCAR teams, it started out as all independents. And there's still independent guys that do enjoy racing. But now it's kind of like the farm system in baseball. It's like that for NASCAR. So, Earnhardt Jr.'s got teams. Tony's got team. Like all the big names from NASCAR. Danica Patrick raced in it for quite a while.
Yeah. Smokes won it like how many times?
Yeah. Oh, and he's one of these guys people love to hate. Like, he's shaking it up a little bit in the stands with some people before over like races. So that's the thing.
I think one of my buddies had a YouTube clip. He was there, and Tony Stewart Smoke comes up and he jumps up on the wall.
Yeah,
and like these dudes next to my buddy, they're like, "Hey, Tony!" And he's like, "Hey, come down here."
Yeah, he got up on the fence. He's like shaking. He's like, "Come to me."
Is Tony Stewart drunk? Driving that thing like a madman. It is a wild environment. I mean, I can tell you that thing is crazy, but
it's a time. It is a time. It is an experience. Great racing. Like that's the thing is that's really why we go is so it's an amazing and it's dirt track racing in January.
Yeah, right.
Where are you going? There's people from all over the world. There's usually a few teams from like Australia, New Zealand that show up. There's European teams that come over, and there's a lot of United States teams, obviously. It's a crazy time. If you enjoy racing, you should watch it. So let's see. Mav TV, it used to be on. Like Lucas, I think Lucas Oil has a show. Maybe they're part of Mav now. But you can watch it online too, is the point. But anyway, I will be in your neck of the woods. I should come by and see this place.
Come on down.
I'll shoot you a text after this. We'll start setting it up.
Okay. Sounds great.
Just one sec. We'll say hello to Lori. Lori is with the call with our, I hesitate to say call center. It's not a call center because everyone pictures a room full of like hundreds of people answering phone calls. Lori is part of Pink Callers, who is our, call center, I guess is the right word, but call answering professionals.
Yeah.
There you go. They're our call answering service. So Lori, welcome. Appreciate you joining us. Right in time for us to close this out, unfortunately. Nathan, thank you.
And thanks for having me. I'm just, I'm grateful for the time. And I hope as we're getting to Christmas and everything that, everybody after Christmas is done, checks out the content, hits us up on the website, lets us know what you want to hear about. Like I said, I hope I've conveyed that we're trying to do something different. Like, I don't want to be Joe Everest. I don't want to be the fence expert. I want this to be something completely different, but we're all friends in the same space, right? Working on the same stuff. So hopefully we can diversify and just get out there and make some stuff that's valuable. And that's my thing, man.
When we talked about it, I was like, this is so right, because like the industry is massive, right? Like there are all of these differing opinions and all of these different methods. Like we could have 100 guys producing content and no one step on each other's toes. Like it is what it is. It's such a big market. So no, I think we have only scratched the surface. Absolutely.
It's going to be.
So I've got the URL up on the screen and in the comments below. If you're listening on the podcast, thank you. Again, I appreciate it. So the URL is protectingyourradius.com. All one word. Can we put it in show notes? Yeah, it'll be in the show. I hear people on podcasts say that, so I'll say that. Check out the link in the podcast show notes.
And again, on social media channels will be radius_podcast. So at radius_podcast on all the major channels across the board.
Wherever you can
and then the podcast will be across all platforms like everyone else, the Apple Podcast, Spotify's, anywhere you consume it, it's out there.
Absolutely. Brandon Frazee, real quick. Brandon Frazee, a guy we both know, says, hello, Joe and Nate.
What up, bud?
Hello, Brandon. Brandon Frazee rhymes with crazy. Not that Brandon's crazy. It's just, Alan Bowling says, real quick, which mic should I get for my iPhone? Braden, would you like to unmute real quick? So Braden's got a mic back. Do you have one you recommend, or am I putting you on the spot?
I could recommend the short one that you have.
Yeah, that one will go. Do you have a mic? While Braden's grabbing that, Nate, do you have a mic that you use for iPhones?
No, I don't.
There's a bunch out there.
Fortunately, I used to have one. I used to have a Rode. Wow, what was it called? It was the Rode with the big fuzzy one.
Yeah, it's like Pod Mic.
It was what?
I think it was called Pod Mic, a Rode Pod Mic, maybe.
No, I think this is the Pod
Mic. Okay, what was?
It was the one that you would put on DSLRs.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
So that would be the one that I would use out in the field, Alan, if I was doing it. I can't remember. I need to probably unmute my phone and look.
So the really small Rode Video mic is a Rode Video Micro, Micro, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
This we have the Shure MV88 that plugs right into Lightning on a phone.
So I'm a Rode Video mic guy. It's the video mic that was the one I was thinking of.
Okay. Yeah. This is the MV88.
Yeah.
So and it's got a little wind blocker on it, which is a good idea because these little foam, all the difference in the world. It's got the Lightning connection because iPhones are the way to go. And it'll work on that. I'm sure they make a USB-C for everybody else. Shure. So, and Shure is spelled SHURE. I'm a big believer in like anything Shure. I mean, obviously, like these things are Shure. Like it's what you want. There's others out there. Yeah, it's such good quality.
Rode's pretty good too.
Well, Rode's pretty good too. It's pretty good too. But yeah. So Shure or Rode, and Rode is RHODE.
RODE.
Or RODE. Shure's SA. Yeah. You can't go wrong. But yeah. RODE, you got it. I think we've got some Rode stuff, right?
Yeah. Rode originally was more for run and gun type stuff. Okay. So that video mic was the one that we were talking about. That was the one that was kind of
my main mic is a Rode Video Mic Pro Plus that I use every day.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. There you go. Rode or Shure. It might be like a Chevy Ford thing where some people just like different stuff. One is better though. Okay. With both of those, yeah. You got it. So, Alan, I hope that helps.
I'm at 1%.
Yep. We'll get out of here. Everybody, thank you so much. Nathan, thank you for being so giving with your time.
Absolutely. I appreciate you having me again. Thanks, guys. And we'll see you out there.
For now.
Tech.
What's that?
Come to Fence Tech.
Fence Tech and OKC. We'll chat again about that. I like to have a show as it gets closer and with nothing but Fence Tech talk.
It'll be awesome, buddy.
Guys, until next week, I'm Joe Everest, the fence expert, reminding you that good fences make good neighbors. I'll see you next week.